Okay, there's a lot of weight to when you name any kind of piece of work, a book, animation film, even a film, the end. There's a lot of weight to that title, especially just calling that.
I wrote a short film that got made in college called The End. It was a zombie movie.
So, with a lot of baggage naming your film called The End, we're going to talk about one that's a dystopian musical. Yeah. I don't think we have ever put that together before.
No, from a director of entirely documentaries.
Yes, yes, and a documentary I really did enjoy. So let's talk about The End here at the end of the month.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
That's true, and I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you. Continue to support the show. I do have to make an announcement. I forgot a previous episode. I'm hosting Secret Movie Night January 8th at the Willow Creek Theater in Plymouth, Minnesota. Tickets are still available, except for they're going really fast. So you get the opportunity to see the movie that it's a big secret. Only I know what the movie's going to be. So hopefully I will see you there. Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Association. Thanks for checking out what the webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And of course, we do have a Patreon.
We do.
Check that out for great deals, great content, and opportunities to tell us what movies we can review on future episodes. Of course, a shout out to you as well. And today we're talking about one of the last movies we watched of this year, and it's called The End.
Yeah, it's fitting, you might say.
Right.
So following decades of isolation after an apocalyptic event, a family living in a salt mine comes across a stranger and will have to decide if the risk is worth it.
So like I said, it's a musical. It's a dystopian. The surface of the planet is not it's a hospital for living, so they live down below. And you have these very wealthy people who might even be the catalyst to the end of the world. Might even started with their own ignorance and own just wealth accumulation. But very much, I would say, on the lines of this is very much acquired taste.
Yeah, I mean, well, we said dystopian, we said musical, we said a first-time feature narrative director from a documentary filmmaker, and it's 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Yes.
That's a hard sell, and that's why I'm thankful for companies like Neon who are going to take those hard sells and pick them up and run with them. Because you're right, this isn't a 4-quadrant film. This isn't a blockbuster, and I don't think with this film opening, when it opens against 8 other great movies on the same day, it's going to have a really hard movement for itself.
But I understand. It's a bold take to take the swing, and hopefully it has longevity to continue. But it almost comes off, even with all that mixture, for me, it comes off very pretentious.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I would think if you're somebody who loves like Wes Anderson movies, Paul Thomas Anderson movies, it has that kind of a flavor to it. I think if you kind of like those kind of movies where it's a little bit of holding the scenes, a little bit of awkwardness, a little bit of musical numbers and all that stuff, the aesthetic kind of reminds me of those kind of films, right?
I agree in a sense. I think like Paul Thomas Anderson has his people that like love every one of his movies, and Wes Anderson has that too. What's interesting to me is both those filmmakers are ones where like I really like a couple of them, but I'm not like in on the whole thing. Yep. And as far as Joshua Oppenheimer, who did documentaries like The Act of Killing, this being his first narrative feature, I was on board with it pretty much the entire way through. I didn't love the movie, but looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, I'm not surprised with it having a 49% that one of us is higher on it than the other.
Yeah, I'm gonna say as soon as I was watching it, I was like, I think he's gonna enjoy this journey more than I would enjoy this.
And because you're right, acquired taste is definitely it. It's got a visual look that's kind of distinctly its own. Yeah. I think we don't often think of Tilda Swinton when we think of like musical actresses. She's done some.
No, even Michael Shannon.
Michael Shannon. We don't think of that way.
But it's very
George McKay.
It's very refreshing, very unique, especially when we see movies that are intentionally trying to make awards. And this is trying to be its own entity of just trying let's put people that we're not familiar and cast them in different environments. We just saw Michael Shannon in another movie, Bike Riders.
Yeah. And he actually has a cameo. He has a cameo in the film A Different Man this year, where he's playing himself. So he's kind of done a good swath of films. And Tilda Swinton's done a couple of pretty sizable films this year as well.
But the snapshot we used for the title card looks fantastic. It's framed. I like the whole color palette. I like the feature of this very rich family that's kind of really ignorant to the point that they're a danger to themselves and everybody else around them.
Yeah. The movie really pops from a visual perspective, and I think part of it is having the fact it's set in a salt mine. So every time the film gets too colorful, someone just goes outside for a little bit, and then
Right.
it kind of resets.
There's
their
a deep
palette.
metaphor to this, right?
But I was surprised because there's a couple people in this film that I have not seen regularly in movies that I'm really excited to see. One of them is Lenny James, who the film I think of most with him is Blade Runner 2049. He plays a small character. He's the doctor in this film, and he's most well known because he headlines a number of seasons of The Walking Dead. And I kept saying every time I see him on The Walking Dead, I really hope he gets to crack out of this when the show comes to an end, because I really like Lenny James. And thankfully, he's finally just starting to surface out in these smaller roles. I hope we get to see more of him because I do think he brings a lot to the Doctor character, which is kind of a smaller character in the film. He has impact every time we see him. Yeah. The other person is Moses Ingram, who plays the girl. They don't have titles in the film.
Comes into the family, right?
Who comes into the family. Moses Ingram had a pretty interesting last year because she was the villain in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And she faced a lot of racism and vitriol for playing this character, and a lot of toxic fandom was sent her way.
I was hoping when
I
we
think
watched
she's
this,
really great here.
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was hoping when she gets interjected in his family that she would be almost like South Park. She'll take it over. They're too dumb to navigate it. In their own naive and their own stupidity, they fall to their whole empire crumbles around them. But we get a kind of a different take. I understand from if you watch Active Killing in this movie, he has this theme of these people don't know how obviously bad the people they are.
Yeah.
Or how naive can be evil. Naiveness is kind of diabolical sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they just hide, or they just lie. Robin said this. Robins don't sound like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and just like the Act of Killing as well, there's a sense of playing house, of like make believe.
Yeah.
That's in this thing too, is that they have the world ended all around them, and things will be okay as long as we just keep the presentation up.
Yeah, let's not talk about all the things that happened over there.
They spend a lot of time putting up these rare paintings
in
this room because we have to protect them. And it's too
the
bad they probably
how
didn't
did you
have that care
acquire
about the people.
them? Right,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how did you acquire them?
But the Act of Killing is so much about taking these like villainous people, taking these guys who have committed horrible things, and having them reenact those situations to come to terms with them. And I think there's kind of a reenactment of this as well. And I would argue that Moses Ingram inserting herself into a world where most everyone there is white except for the person who works for them, the doctor who cares for them, creates this kind of concern about otherness that she brings into the table, is that she is an other when she shows up.
There's a certain distance. It's almost like they don't know how to be authentically human. They think like if we just do like human things, we collect paintings, I'm working on my manifesto, who the hell's going to read it?
Yeah.
But I'm investing my time. It's almost like they do things mechanically. Mm-hmm. And almost like the sounds count mechanically. And I think that's going to be kind of a put off for a lot of people. Like, what are we doing with this?
Yeah, because the film is about the minutia. It's about the things we do instead of accept the truth, the things that we hide from, so we don't have to deal with the guilt of what's going on.
Yeah, I work on my manifesto and rather like this deal with why this is the way it is.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter that the world has come to an end. If I just finish this book, people will eventually find it. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the thing is these are all people that are walking away from the problem.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
They have to come to terms with that. And Michael Shannon's character, I think he starts to at the end of the film. Is as the film nears its end, he has that really great scene where he's kind of dancing out in the salt mine area and kind of coming to terms with what the entry of this young woman does to the situation.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing kind of happens with Tilda Swinton, but she rejects it a lot more throughout the film. I don't know that this is a movie that really hits the punch that it's supposed to hit.
That's what I was looking for.
But I do appreciate the swing.
Even for all the faults for Saltburn, it delivers that punch at the end.
Saltburn is very punchy.
Yeah, and I kind of thought we were going to have something like that at the end, but it kind of the core of the themes he would rather concentrate on rather than where we're going. He wanted to make sure we emphasize that this family is kind of enduring. We kind of hope they're the best for them are really just not going to get it.
He does create dynamic characters in the family because you're right. Yeah, like they're not. I wouldn't say wholly likable, but we do kind of want to like them a little bit, But I think that's kind of Oppenheimer's thing, though. Is the Act of Killing is not a description of what these people did. It's not a discussion about the horrible things they did. It's kind of a scenic route to getting to the horrible situation. And that's kind of what this movie is too. Is it's not blunt force object like Saltburn.
No.
Which, I mean, that director, Emerald Fennell, who also did Promising Young Woman, she's very blunt force.
Yeah, if you want to do like,
you know,
it's not about eating the rich. It's almost like just giving little nods to the rich.
Yeah, and this movie is definitely a scenic route to the real problem. It's kind of avoiding it so that we come to terms with it.
Yes. So, what do you think of our assessment of the end? Kyle's very up with it, and I'm kind of lukewarm to it.
That's fair. And the thing is, I think you watching it, you can understand why people would really like it.
Yeah.
And I think me watching it, I can also understand why people really won't. So,
yeah.
So this is definitely going to be a movie that I think across the board is going to be a mixed bag. I'm not surprised by the Rotten Tomatoes score. But what is your score? Go ahead and let us know down below.
I'm almost guaranteed if Cisco and Ebert was still alive, it would be one of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Not every movie should be a two-thumber. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe as well, and keep us on your thoughts of the end, as well as what you're looking forward to at the beginning of next year. We'll see you later.